Welcome back to the BBR Podcast. Bitch, be real.
We dive into our realistic experiences with relevant perspectives on personal improvement and character development.
We're bringing you our verbal and written views on healing for a well-rounded approach to growth.
Now that we're all here, let's get into it.
We're in the mountains, bitch.
We have shit in the woods for the past day. Neither of us actually shit, but it's just a principle.
We brought our co-host.
We're having a little girls' trip here in the woods.
Doing some primitive survival shit as fuck. We started a fire, then we started a charcoal grill.
Yeah, with no lighter fluid, which is hard to do. Let's start at the beginning. This is almost the exact same spot that we stayed in the first time in our trip that we've talked about literally every single podcast.
Yeah.
It's literally down the road. Like, I'm pretty sure the little shipping container is, like, literally over there.
Yeah. Because we were driving and we started recognizing shit, and then we're like, we are literally staying in the exact same fucking place. We went to the same overlook, like, same area.
In the same Ingles.
Yeah.
Where you found
Ingles.
those, what were they, pothos?
Yeah, I got 2 giant fucking pothos plants for like $30 at this fucking Ingles, and they still sit on my TV stand. I was fucking killed them, and they were so beautiful until I took them home. But that's okay. We don't need to worry about that right now. They had another one. It was shitty. Same price. Actually, like $20.
Yeah.
For a shittier
It was more
one.
expensive for a smaller one.
Yeah.
But
inflation, man, I tell you. We pull up to the cabin, okay, and the Airbnb described it as like super fucking steep. So we were nervous as hell. And so we pull over to like the parking area. We piss in the porta potties. And then we walk the dogs up this hill because we were like, I don't think the car is going to make it. So we walk them up, drop them in the Airbnb. And we go back down and we're like, I think the car can make it. So then we go to get the car up here. And you're like, I think there's a stick. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm waiting for that bitch. That like, bitch, look at this shit.
Come
and you're
on,
like,
bruh.
I don't see anything. I think we're good. And then you check the back, and then that's when you see the fucking stick that's length
where
of the
bitch
car.
came in. I was like, bitch.
And I was like, I knew it. I got a handful of cheeses and hopped out. And I was like, bitch, what the fuck? Like, it was actually the length of her car wedged in between her 2 front wheels, and then the like stick part of the stick, not the branches, was just stuck in your fucking back suspension.
Like my muffler or something.
Yeah.
Back there. There's got to be something fucked up with my car now, but...
So then we had to undo the stick.
Yeah, we pulled the stick out. We had teamwork. We were both underneath this fucking car in the middle of a dirt road, and we're pulling a giant... Like, it was like a 4-foot stick. It was not a stick. It was a fucking branch.
Yeah, it was genuinely the length of her car, almost.
It was
Maybe
crazy.
minus a foot. So we pull that out. We do the trek up the steep driveway. And then
A little bit scary, I'll be honest. Because the directions, the Airbnb directions, literally say, like, it is steep. And, like,
Yeah.
you need to have 4-wheel drive. And I do not have 4-wheel drive. I recently learned I do not have 4-wheel drive in my car. But we made it twice.
we made it twice. So this Airbnb made me fucking nervous because it's not on Google Maps, which we learned that lesson later. So like the first time we put in the address, it led us pretty much correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But we had to follow these like step-by-step directions, like go 0.7 of a mile down the road, take a right, go 1/1,000,000th of a mile down the road and take a sharp left, like type shit. But we navigated, we made it safely, and then we headed to the Ingles.
We went and got ice and some s'more stuff at the Ingles. We danced around like fucking crazy people. We were doing the Michael Jackson, what is it?
The moonwalk?
The moonwalk, yeah.
The Michael Jackson. The moonwalk.
But Michael Jackson did it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Michael Jackson walk.
Yeah, we did it very shittily, but we did it. We got some Reese's for s'mores. We had a good old time. And then we headed to Sunset.
We went to the same overlook. I'll put some pictures and videos up and stuff. And we get there. The sunset's like almost over. Like I thought that like
It was slightly mid.
It was okay. Like the sunset itself was like okay. It was like a basic sunset. The sky was really clear though.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, bitch, I think we missed it. But like the sky was still pretty, you know, it was worth going. We're sitting at the top of this like hill. It's a pretty steep hill. hill, but it's short, so it's not like crazy dangerous. And I was like, I kind of want to roll down this hill.
But see, I was hesitant because, okay, so there's like, I would say a good 10 feet of hill. There's like these rows of like thick flour, whatever the fuck those hoes were. But after that, if we rolled down that, it's just like you drop off the fucking mountain. So I was like, I don't really know if we should roll down this. And there was just an old guy sitting there, just alone, smoking his cigarette, listening to some cool ass music.
He was smoking a cigar, a fat Cuban cigar. And he's listening to like 80s rock.
Yeah, he's listening to some good ass rock music.
He's got his motorcycle behind him.
Yeah.
He was real granddad-like.
But like the type of granddad you want to be. We like say hi to him. We're like, we like the vibe. And then we're just kind of sitting there. He was like kind of looking at us. So you were like, we're letting our intrusive thoughts win. And we were like, I think we're going to roll down this hill. Do you think we'll die? Yeah, we got a second opinion. He was like, go for it. And I was like, okay,
yeah.
Heard.
We fucking rolled and we felt like little children. We were getting all dirty and it was scary a little bit because it was like, you know, when you go fast on the hill, you don't actually like hit every part of your body. You just kind of like jump and roll.
Yeah.
It was kind of crazy, but.
Take your goddamn keys out of your pocket though. Because I have my fat ass keys in my pocket. Didn't feel them the first time. I was too agile. By the second time, I was feeling slightly concussed, so I didn't have the brain processes working. I'm like, fuck, I'm hitting a big ass rock going down.
Both times in a different spot.
Yeah, and I'm like, this ain't making no sense. And I'm like, god damn, my fucking thigh hurts. And then I'm like, it's my goddamn keys. And this morning, I woke up with a fat pain.
A word of warning?
Yeah, that. It was fucking fun.
It was really fun.
Enjoyed
we did
myself.
it twice.
We did.
We went back up and we were like, okay, let's do it again because it was so fucking fun. And the first time we kind of got back up and we were like, let's just do it again. The second time we just laid there and looked up at the sky and like basked in the fucking beauty that was nature at the time.
Said we were grateful for each other. Just laid there. And we went back up. We were getting a little cold, so we whipped out your emergency fucking... You described that shit as a poncho. It was not a poncho. It was like an emergency sleeping bag.
It was like one of those things that like the firefighters and stuff give you if you get into like a car accident and it's cold outside. It's like a thermal blanket, but it's not a blanket. It's like a sack. And you put your whole body into it.
Thermal sack.
Thermal sack.
All I can think about is a condom.
It kind of was like a condom.
Yeah, so we both got into the La Condom and just kind of sat there. At the overlook, it was like the old guy right next to us, just some dude sitting on his truck, watching us do whatever the fuck we were doing. And then we were like, I feel we should head back to the Airbnb. So we headed back to the Airbnb.
When we came back to the Airbnb,
you're right, I missed it.
The first time, it was fine. The second time, we put in the same exact address and it took us to 30 minutes away from where we were supposed to go. At first, we were like, okay, bitch, this is a little bit scary. Like, we're in the middle of the woods. We have no idea where we are. Freaking out a little bit, like getting just a little bit nervous. The idea of like going back up this hill was a little bit nerve-wracking to me. We kind of calm each other down in that way where like if one of us gets a little bit nervous, we kind of are like, okay, let's take a deep breath. Like, we're good.
Like,
we got
take a moment.
Like, we'll get there. It's fine. We're going to be 30 minutes late, but it's going to be fine.
Yeah, it's about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
I was just bum fucked. I have not been bum fucked. But I was bumfuck confused because I was the address putter. And I put in the same goddamn address. And then I put it in again. And it kept showing up as this one. And so, like, the road we were supposed to turn on was, like, I don't know if we should say the address. We're going to make up one. Chimney Road. On the other side of the city or town or whatever is, like, Timber Road or whatever the fuck. Chimney Road. Timber Road. Same goddamn street name, but with one word different in the front. And so I think Google got confused and fucked us over. So we navigated to the other address, made it up the hill, saw a bunch of deer.
But yeah, when we got back, I wasn't too confident in my fire starting abilities at first, but I knew kind of like the basic concepts, and we had a bunch of firewood, and I was like, okay, we got this, let's do it. So it successfully built a fire. And thank God it worked because we wouldn't have been able to eat last night without it.
No, fuck, we barely ate. Okay, this was the situation. We get the fire going. Mm-hmm. And we're like, okay, perfect. Let's move on to the charcoal grill. Same shit, right? I thought you took a fucking lighter and then the coals caught on fire. I don't know if that was fucking ignorant to think, but when the fuck have I ever needed to start a charcoal grill in my entire goddamn life? I don't grill. I don't eat shit you grill. I'm like trying to light the coal on fire and we're like doing the same shit, like putting in some kindling, and that shit is just not working.
And we were at this for like an hour. My dad called me. So he's like asking us like questions like we have this, we don't have any lighter fluid, we don't have any bug spray, we don't have any hand sanitizer. He's like all my ideas are not working out. And I'm like, I know, okay. We're putting in cardboard, we're putting in she's fucking lighting leaves on fire and putting them in there. And
I tried to light up some Aperol, but that shit didn't work.
yeah, oh my God.
So I poured a bunch of Aperol in this fucking cup, and I was like, flambeing and shit. Like at a restaurant, they take some alcohol and they light that shit on fire. So I was like, I don't understand why this wouldn't fucking work. Probably because it's not like vodka or rum or something. It's fucking...
It's not pure alcohol.
We had Aperol and fucking Prosecco. So I was like, okay, I take a fucking swig of the Aperol because I put a little bit too much. Shit's ass on its own. And I'm like trying to light it up. That doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, we need a fucking problem solve. I'm fucking hungry. I'm like, okay, we have a fucking fire. So we just have to figure out how to transfer the heat from this fire all the way across the fucking deck to this fucking charcoal grill. And I'm like, that can't be too goddamn hard. We have like little scooper fire tools. And so I'm like, okay, like I'll just put some fucking coals in there, heat them hoes up and carry them one by one over to the grill. And then that shit should work. And it did.
The innovative bitch that she is, she got the fucking charcoal grill started. So there's a lesson to be learned in this. Even if it takes you 3 hours to cook a meal,
honestly, probably 4, and it was still raw, but...
And it wasn't perfect. Just because we had planned on spending maybe 30 minutes cooking and eating all together and then doing other shit the rest of the night, we appreciated that meal more than I've ever appreciated a meal in my life.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we can be transparent here. We made kebabs. That shit was lukewarm at best.
Yeah, the pizza was a little soggy.
If even cooked. That was rough. We definitely got a little pissed off at one point. Not even pissed. I think we were both just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we need to take a few deep breaths.
And we did.
We popped the Prosecco. We had a good chug.
And we took 3 deep breaths together.
We did. And we made some fucking s'mores. To tide us over. Then we got that shit going. According to your dad, our only fucking source at this point. Like, coal couldn't be black, so we waited for it to all be white, and it really wasn't that hot anymore. There were a few different issues, but then we ate, enjoyed our meal,
and by this time it was about midnight, and we had gotten back here at like 8:30, so it took us that long to make the food.
It was a little bit questionable. We bundled. I couldn't figure out how the fuck to keep my dogs warm. So like Coco, she's got on a fleece layer, and then her pajamas. Even with that, I couldn't keep her fucking warm last night, and I was like, low-key, like a little worried about it, because I was like, I don't want her to fucking freeze to death. We bundled her up in a chair. She went to sleep. Slater's got his pajamas and his hoodie on. He's straight. We cook their food. We feed them. We go inside. Everybody's fed.
We woke up this morning for sunrise.
We could see it.
I'll put some pictures and videos up, because the sunrise literally came right in through this giant window. It's fucking beautiful. We saw all the colors in the sky this morning. And last night, too, I forgot to mention this. I saw a fucking shooting star last night.
She did, and I was on my goddamn phone and missed it.
But we could see the stars. She said they were twinkling. I didn't see them twinkling, but if you moved your head through the trees, you could kind of see them twinkling.
Yeah. It was just pretty. Like, it's so dark out here that... Like, if you live in a populated area at all, you cannot see the fucking stars through your window. Like, there's too much light pollution. And so to be able to, like, sit in our bed and see the trees, and there was a little firelight because the fire was still kind of burning out, and then we could see the fucking shit twinkling. It was just majestic as fuck.
It really was. And then the sunrise this morning, it was kind of like golden hour, but when the sun actually peeked up over the mountains, it was so fucking pretty, bro. It was right in my eyeballs, too, kind of like it is right now. It was literally beaming into my eyes, and it just gave me such a different energy.
It was just nice. Like, it was just a nice morning. We came out here, we restarted our fire, attempted to make some coffee, keyword attempts.
Yeah, it was not good. I forgot filters, so we had to use paper towels as filters, and it just didn't let it didn't let the water sit in the coffee grounds enough to where it made the coffee actually strong. So it was just extremely weak coffee, and it just didn't taste good. It tastes like milk because we put some cinnamon roll creamer in it. Oh, also the chia bowls that we had this morning.
Yeah, so I ordered Daily Harvest, and it's like really I love everything from there I've ever gotten, but there are these forager bowls, which are like chia seed bowls with like seeds and fucking fruit and shit in there. And so I was like, that's a perfect thing to bring, but I'd never had them yet because I get like 1 per box, and I've had 2 boxes. And so I was like, cool, I have 2 of them, I'll bring them. They were kind of ass. I like chia seed pudding, but it had figs and pumpkin seeds. Like, it was almost good, but something was off.
I think it was the texture for me. I don't really like chia pudding because when I ate it, I was like, okay, the flavor's a 10, but the texture's a 6, because the texture of it was it was like oatmeal, but like a grainy oatmeal. Like if you were to get the steel cut oats rather than like whole oats, that's what it was kind of tasting like, and the texture was just off.
For me, it was like, I couldn't even place my finger on it. I like every aspect in there. I like chia seed pudding. I like the flavor. But sometimes, like, you're eating something and you're like, this isn't bad, but I just am not fucking with it for some reason. Like, that's just what it was for me.
You said that it was one of those things where you could eat it, but you have to drink a lot of water to get it down.
Yeah, like, you chew it and you low-key chew. I eat really fucking fast. And so when I'm just kind of, like, taking a bite and chewing on that shit and then taking a gulp of water and then, like, waiting a minute and taking another bite, it's, like, not enough to where I can't palate it. It's just not enjoyable enough for me to scarf that shit down, which is what I do with all my food. You give me a fucking pot of mac and cheese, I'll have it gone. 1 minute maximum. It's fine. We had a little granola bar. We had a sip of watery coffee.
Cleaned up.
No, meditated when we woke up. We forgot to mention that.
Yeah. Like literally as soon as we woke up, we meditated.
The app's called Balance. I highly fucking recommend it. I got like a free 1-year trial, but I would definitely pay for this shit. It teaches you how to meditate. Like, there's daily meditations to check in with your mood. There's like a whole sleep section, meditation courses where like I'm doing like the foundation ones. It like teaches you how to properly meditate. It's just really fucking cool, and I'd highly recommend it if you want to get into meditation but like don't know where to start. We have a lot of good conversations off the podcast, clearly, but they come up more organically. But by the time that we've run audio tests and set up the camera and figured out, you know, our setup, then it's like your mind's no longer in that, like, deep intellectual moment. It's in, like, okay, we just spent, 30 minutes setting up.
Yeah.
So then we do a little meditation, get us back into it.
Yeah.
We wanted to do some yoga. We wanted to, there's, like, a little creek down there. We wanted to do a cold plunge. We wanted to take cute pictures. We wanted to, like, write little letters and throw them in the fire. Like, we wanted to do all these things.
We had a bunch of stuff planned for this trip. We were going for, like, a relaxing vibe in the woods. Obviously, that's what the point of the vacation was. But we had a bunch of stuff planned. We wanted to be almost like a productive relaxation situation.
Almost like a content.
Yeah, like a content weekend.
Kind of moment.
And we had a ton of stuff planned. Like, we brought cute outfits to go take pictures in the creek. And, like, we just had a bunch of, like, a whole vibe and a whole aesthetic planned for this trip. And it just didn't end up being that. But it ended up being something so much more than that, because instead of doing what we had planned and forcing us to do those things and forcing us to participate in something that wasn't correct for us in the moment and didn't feel right, we did what we actually needed for ourselves. And I feel like it just turned out better in the long run anyway.
Yeah, and I feel like in full transparency, too, like, some of our trips are completely unplugged. But I feel like this trip, we were a little bit more intuitive on what we wanted to do. Like, we woke up, and I was like, bitch, I kind of just want to lay here.
Yeah.
Like, on my phone for a sec. And that's not the most, like, ooh, unplugged, connecting with nature, fucking meditations and bitch shit. But it's like, for me at least, in my day-to-day life, it is a fucking luxury to wake up and go on my phone. Like, and just lay in bed and go on my phone. Like, that's so normal for so many people and, like, not feel guilty about it. So we did that for, like, 15, 20 minutes. Like, we're already in nature. Yeah. We spent last night not on our phones at all.
Trying to navigate the wilderness for sure, because I didn't go on my phone even to respond to texts or anything because we were so preoccupied with what we were doing in the moment. And sometimes you just need to do mindless work, like scrolling on social media. It just wasn't an aesthetic weekend like we had it planned to be, but it ended up being exactly what we needed, and I feel like that's better, you know? Yeah. Like, we didn't get all the content we wanted. We didn't get, you know, we got lost in the woods. We had to actually shit in a fucking pot outside the door, and it was cold. I don't think you understand cold until you have your ass cheeks and your vagina out in the wind. I'm sorry. In 40-degree weather,
you don't.
You don't. You just don't. It's a little bit crazy.
And it's humbling.
It is.
Was it as aesthetic as those bitches on Instagram that are like, you know, in a fucking $500 Airbnb and a fucking $300 sweatpants
in a cabin
set? Like, no, it wasn't that, because that's not fucking realistic.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, but it's like, we had the fucking stars above us. We had our s'more shit set out.
We built a fucking fire,
We
bitch.
built a fire. We had the firelight. Like, you can still be grateful and find beauty in the shit that's not advertised as aesthetic nowadays.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And honestly, I think that what we had planned for this wasn't even the correct mindset to have, and coming here and doing exactly what we did made us realize that actually being unplugged is not about getting the content, which it's kind of like ass backwards if you think about it, because we planned the entire time to have an unplugged weekend, but it was also planned to be a content weekend, which is so ass backwards, because yes, you can film content and still be very much in the moment. You know, when you're stressing about not being able to eat that night and like, or eating cold food, which we were down to fucking do.
Yeah,
But trying to, I think just living in the moment and trying to figure things out and like problem solving and being innovative and being creative with how you problem solve, like pride her so much in her ability to problem solve. Like in our last podcast, the last two podcasts actually, the ones that were filmed in her bedroom, the light was too bright and the lighting was off. And instead of just giving up and like turning the light off or having bad lighting or whatever, she took a white blanket from her closet and put it over the fan so that it would be a soft light. Like, that is the most creative shit that I've ever heard in my life. What the fuck in your mind provoked you to do that? And the same with like the coals. Like, instead of getting stressed out and being like, okay, let's just eat the cold fucking food and give up, she put the coals, which this seems so basic now that we're like, we've done it and we understand it, and it might sound like that's fucking like, clearly bitch, like why wouldn't you think of doing that? But like in the moment, we have never fucking lit a charcoal fire before. Her being able to be like, okay, well, if we have hot coals in this one and we can just put them on a fucking tiny little shovel and transport them across the deck and make the other coals hot, then we'll be good. That's exactly what she fucking did, and we ended up eating warm enough food and being humbled by that entire experience. And I think that was really the whole point of this entire trip, was just getting out in nature and actually experiencing camping necessarily. It's glamping because we do have a fucking net into a deck and a real fire pit and a real charcoal grill and a fucking real toilet to some extent and like a real bed and a real shelter and not in a tent. But now that we have done this, I think we could genuinely go camping in a tent and like actually figure it out.
I feel like what I gained from this trip was more of like, sometimes shit just don't go your way. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now we can light a fucking fire. Didn't think I would be able to do that shit. I kept my dogs warm. They had a good time. This is their first trip. We appreciated nature. We didn't get all the content. We didn't look cute doing it. Like,
going back to the social media thing, I think a big problem with people now and like people in our generation, because of social media and because of like just the day that we live in, I think people are so attached to living a lifestyle that they forget about living life.
mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that there's a difference between living a certain lifestyle and having and continuing that lifestyle, and then like there's a difference between that and like actually living life and taking it for what it is. And I think this trip showed us that we are capable of taking life for what it is and figuring it out.
Realistically, we could have put a lot more effort into making this trip aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
We could have bought fucking matching sweatpants sets.
Mm-hmm.
We could have gotten the dogs cuter outfits, gotten cute platters to like sit the s'more shit out on, and like lit candles. And we could have done all that, but it's like, you're here to enjoy the trip. You're not here to bring all this extra shit to make it aesthetic and worry about what you look like. God damn, our fucking view right now as we're filming the podcast is like looking at fucking mountains and beautiful trees and like a nice fucking fire, and like that's aesthetic enough for me. Because it's a lot of fucking effort to do.
I just feel like that's the opposite of taking life for what it is, which is exactly what the point of this was.
Because at the end of the day, we're not going to look back. Like, if we did make this trip really aesthetic, we wouldn't look back and be like, that trip was so good because the s'more shit was served up on a silver platter in our matching sweatsuits.
No, literally.
That doesn't matter. At the end of the fucking day, it don't matter. What we're going to look back on is like, bitch, we fucking did that.
And we made lifelong memories with each other. Like, there's videos that the internet will never fucking see from this trip of us just being fucking idiots on this deck last night.
Yeah.
Like, dancing in fucking time lapse and fucking your demon face,
yeah,
bitch.
Oh my god,
God. And also,
that shit
yesterday,
creeped me out.
there's a ladder in our Airbnb with a fucking net up on the ceiling. And this bitch crawled in there, and I swear to God, this flexible ass bitch looked like the demon that, like the fucking sleep paralysis demon that hides underneath your bed at night.
You had to hold the ladder. I struggled up there, and then to get into it, I like my half of my stomach was up, but I was just kind of stuck there. And so I put my legs up in the air, and so one's like out back behind me like straight, the other's fucking curled up, and I'm trying to like fucking propel myself. You got the craziest pictures of me last night. And then we opened the bottle of Prosecco, and you turned on the flash and took a video. and my face is like eyes wide open, fucking greasy black bangs that are separated and not done, like hanging down, and I've got the red eye shit. And it's like the opening frame of this video is the creepiest shit I've ever seen of myself. And it actually, like, it kind of freaked me out. I was like thinking, if something like that just popped up in the woods, I would actually fucking cry. Like, it was scary. You didn't want to look at it.
I didn't want to fucking look at it because it was actually really fucking creepy, and the internet will never see that shit. And I think that I'm very, very content with the fact that half of the videos that we took on this trip will never be the aesthetic videos that we originally planned.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine with me.
But no aesthetic video would have made us laugh like this shit we did
No.
capture.
And honestly, it would have been such a superficial video, and it would have been such a superficial trip at that point that it wouldn't have been the lifelong memories that we actually did make. And I think that those are just so much more important than any aesthetic video that we could ever take.
Yeah, because I honestly feel like shit going wrong and just being, like, fucking stupid looking, like, getting lost, pulling out a stick, worrying about dropping a hot coal on my dog is, like, what I'm gonna remember. I'm not gonna remember the fucking, like, aesthetic videos. Like, that's just,
Yeah.
to me, personally, and, like, what I care about in life, that's not some shit I care about.
Yeah.
Like, enough to
And-
remember it my whole life.
And don't get me wrong, there will be some aesthetic reels and TikToks going out. So if you're interested in those, definitely watch those. But there is some aesthetic videos that we did take of just nature in general. It's not necessarily going above and beyond to make the trip aesthetic. It's just the idea that we are literally in the middle of the fucking fall leaves changing colors in the mountains. And the trip itself is aesthetic. The area that we're in, the environment that we're in, is just, it's naturally aesthetic. It's not overly processed aestheticness.
Yeah, it's just us setting up a fucking camera and recording what's around us. Like, we aren't the aesthetic.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is not the aesthetic per se. Like, the area we're in, the vibe.
The concept.
Hate to say it, but the vibe.
The vibe.
The vibe is...
The vibe.
And don't get me wrong, I fucking love that you like and are good at creating cute reels, because those are, like, the reels that we make and the aesthetic little things that we make are not only important because, like, it's good content, but it's also important because, like, we look back on it later and we're able to scroll through and, like, it brings back the memories that other people don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh yeah, like, there's a cute little frame of us cutting shit over there, and it's like, that brings back the memory of us, like, throwing the scraps and being like, what we doing if a fucking bear shows up?
Yeah.
And being like, all right, I'm gonna get Coco.
Yeah.
And you gonna get Slater. And we gonna go inside.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that reminds me of. It doesn't remind me of, you know, oh, look how aesthetic and, like...
Yeah.
It's like those things trigger other memories that are more meaningful, but it's still fucking nice to look at and be like, oh, that was so cute. The nature part of the video reminds me of this fucking view, etc.
Yeah. And just the feeling of being here and meditating on the bed at sunrise, and, like, the shit that social media doesn't see are the things that you actually remember. And I think that we paid a lot more attention to the behind the scenes than we did for on camera.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, in my opinion, that's priceless.
If it was either have a super aesthetic trip and have a video that goes viral, or have this kind of trip with you, I'm picking this kind of trip.
Absolutely.
Like, any fucking day. It doesn't feel like a lot of people talk about that shouldn't be your priority.
Yeah. I think that there's no problem with that, but prioritizing that over anything else in your life is just so superficial, and it's not fulfilling.
No.
I think that's the big thing here, is we're trying to stress the idea of fulfillment and, like, what actually makes you feel whole as a person and makes you feel, like, connected to yourself. And I think maybe social media and setting up for angles and taking pictures is something that is truly fulfilling for you. That's just not what it is for us, and I think for most people it's not fulfilling. There's a lot of disappointment that comes with that, and there's a lot of comparison that comes with that. And if you're okay with that, that's cool. We're not knocking you for that by any means, but I think that for most people, the most fulfilling things that happen are the ones that happen behind the camera, and that's just reality.
I feel like having high expectations lead to high disappointment.
I agree with that, and I actually struggle with that a lot. I over-romanticize everything that happens in my life. Like, if I went to a concert last weekend, and we went on this trip, and I have gone on multiple trips, and I've had days just, like, hanging out with people where I'm like, okay, I have an over-romanticized idea in my head of what this day is going to go, like, how this day is going to go and what it's going to look like. And if it doesn't look like that, I'm just unbelievably disappointed by the day, and I almost resent the day and not regret it,
But feel like it was wasted in a way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, especially if the time that I have with that person or the time that I have in that area or that environment is short, I feel like the time that I spent there wasn't fully taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like it was just wasted, which is a horrible mindset to have. And I'm definitely working through that. And I think that this trip helped me with that because it wasn't the aesthetic, over romanticized trip that I had planned in my head, but it was so much more than that.
And it's something I struggled with too, like, especially when I was younger, just feeling like, okay, like, we said we were going to leave at 6 and now it's 6:30 and like, fuck, like, we're fucking up. Like, this was the itinerary. We didn't follow the itinerary. Now it's fucked up. And it's like, I think I just learned and realized it's cool to have plans for sure, and they're needed. And having a general idea of what you want to do in the weekend is a good idea. Life is going to happen. Your car's going to break down while you're on your way to do something, and then you're going to miss doing that something. Like, making a good moment out of the unexpected is better than just completely being on track all the time. There would be no excitement. If you knew every single goddamn thing that was going to happen on every single trip you ever took and you followed an itinerary so strictly that it was like, okay, yeah, I am kind of tired, but I'm going to wake up at 8 a.m. and go do this and this and this and this, and then it all so perfectly timed out, you would give yourself no room to have excitement and have things go wrong and turn
unexpected.
And have unexpected moments, and you put so much pressure on yourself. Like, sometimes, fuck, just sleep in. Like, if you're tired, hit the snooze. Like, if you miss the fucking yoga class on top of a hill, fuck, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, you can go next week. I heard this quote, if it's not fun, it's funny. And how she explained it was like, if things happen exactly the way that you wanted them to, it's fun. But if they don't, it's funny, and you have different memories. And just because they're not the memories that you originally had planned, they're still good memories, and they're still worth having.
Problems always have solutions. You can figure that shit out. Ain't no reason to be stressed. We do have to leave our Airbnb, though.
So, with that is the end of this podcast. We hope that you got something out of it, some value. Maybe start changing your mindset a little bit on aesthetics and fulfilling memories.
I hope you enjoyed. We will see you soon. We love ya.
As always, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at the BBR Pod. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Love ya.